And I fear that it's a little understood and perhaps a little recognised issue that to invest and to buy, etc., um, must be accompanied by a view of what the long-term political relationship is between the two entities that are trading. In the old days, you know, we used to play soccer, we used to send the ballet team and the orchestras, and culture was the first means of negotiating a relationship. And then, of course, when that was satisfied, we started to do business. But it seems to me that in such a volatile world today, with such clearly diverse interests now coming to the fore, as the turmoil seems to be getting greater, investors and companies should be very much aware of that and not be seduced by perhaps the size of the market, but try to take a view of A, the size of the market, B, an economic mantra under which those people live, and to also understand that in fact there is a bigger agenda which the politicians have. And what I see at the moment is a seriously deteriorating political relationship between the USA and China, which we must be very careful of. We see India, our gaze has tended to be taken off India because of Pakistan and Afghanistan. And I just wonder whether our foreign policy people are mindful of the fact that economics and politics do go hand in hand. Companies that rely upon the government for information and intelligence regarding what's going on invest in those countries and then suddenly find that they get kicked out, or this happens or that happens, and the investment is lost, or at least seriously impaired.
There are some fledgling movements in China to increase the average wage. That has just started in a few areas with a few companies I know. If that spreads, can China's economic miracle continue without those low wages, Derek?
Well, no, it can't. And again, I think to look at the history of the world economically, you look at Germany after World War II, you look at Japan after World War II. We actually, the Allies with the Marshall Plan and in Europe and so on, and with the aid that was given to Japan, we literally, through reparations and whatever, literally rebuilt their economies. And then they overtook us. Germany became the strongest European nation in terms of its industrial power and its exporting capability, and certainly Japan did too. Look where they are today. And so it seems to me to be a cyclical thing. You know, Taiwan took over from Japan. Now the Koreans are trying to do the same with their economic miracle and their low wages and basis. So if China continues to expand as it does, it will have to share the rewards of that success with its people in higher wages, as all of these emerging countries and economies have done. So I would look for history just simply to repeat itself, and the Chinese government will have to deal, one, with the overheating of their economy, and two, start to pay the appropriate wages. And the foreign investors that are there will have to pay appropriate wages and try to shrug off this slave labor kind of stuff that we read about in the press. Yeah.
We hear lots of grumbling from Washington as well about the value of China's currency. How is that an issue, Derek?
It is an issue, and of course, if China did in fact devalue its currency, then that would make its exports more expensive. That's the key. And so to keep it going, they've been reluctant to do that. I do fear, however, or believe that shortly we're going to see that happen. And based upon this morning's news, that in fact it seems to me that those numbers might be false, and it may be the dawn of the beginning of consideration for the devaluation of the yuan. We shall see.
Mm-hmm. What is the future of the dollar? Do you think the dollar will be able to continue as the reserve currency of the world, Derek?
For the foreseeable future, I think that it certainly is at the moment. You've seen a flight back to dollars recently and a sale of the euro. The thing to remember about the euro era is they're talking about 14-year lows and this kind of thing. I remember in 2006, the euro was at $1.18, and it's still above that rate now. And when we at Harsco invested in Europe at that time, we budgeted at $1.18. It's this morning at about $1.20. It's moved from $1.19, $1.20 from my looking at this before I came here today. And so what I see basically is this kind of number, about $1.20 to the euro, maybe $1, anywhere between $1.40 and $1.50 to the British pound for the foreseeable future. It could, however, and the caveat would be this, that if the other European countries can't manage their economies, the Spains and the Portugals, Greece is having its difficulties. Mm-hmm. If it gets worse there, and the Germans have to dig deeper and the French have to dig deeper, then one could possibly see it go.
Okay. What about Pennsylvania? In the last few minutes of our show, what would you recommend to the state legislature, to Governor Rendell, to improve Pennsylvania's economic climate? What would you do?
Well, I guess I wouldn't see eye to eye with Governor Rendell on his policies and strategies or his administration. I think that in the 8 years they have failed to address the individual, corporate and the taxation situation, which I would have liked to have seen. It's the job of the administration to create an environment. That's their job, not to interfere, but to create the environment for people to enjoy life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's their job. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that that interference, whether it's at national level or at local level, is not the recipe for success. Cut your cloth to suit the situation. Let's have some fiscal responsibility. Make people manage with existing resources, and you'll find that value will be created. Do more with less. That's the secret of value added and creating value for individuals and for the state. However, that's the kind of bad news that people are afraid to do, and it seems that politicians, to me, don't have either the intellectual capability of working that out, or ideologically they are committed to a certain course of action. But hopefully when these elections are done and we have a new governor and perhaps many new members of the legislature, they'll recognise that they're inheriting not an ideological situation but a very real situation which they're going to have to address, and I hope that people of courage are elected to be able to do that.
Well, that's a key economic and political philosophy for all of us, Derek, as we go, to be able to do more with less. And we thank you for your time today and sharing your expertise and your background with us. I know all of you have learned a great deal, and we'll be back next week with another edition of Behind the Headlines. Thank you for joining us.